According to the late civil rights leader Julian Bond, the civil rights movement in America began a long time ago. As early as the 17th century, blacks and whites, slaves in Virginia, and Quakers in Pennsylvania protested the barbarity of slavery. Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, William Lloyd Garrison, John Brown, and Harriet Tubman are but a few of those who led the resistance to slavery before the Civil War. After the Civil War, another protracted battle began against slavery's legacy, racism and segregation. But for most Americans, the civil rights movement began on May 17, 1954, when the Supreme Court handed down the Brown decision outlawing segregation in public schools. The mid-1950s through the late 1960s was a tumultuous and violent time for civil rights workers. Freedom riders were attacked as they tried to integrate intercity buses. Black churches were bombed. One instance killed 4 little girls. Peaceful protesters were attacked by police with fire hoses and snarling dogs. This era was also renowned for powerful civil rights organizations across America, especially in the Deep South, where such notables as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee worked for equality for Black Americans. In Ithaca, the struggle for equal rights was spearheaded by the Council for Equality. The Council for Equality was Ithaca's own homegrown, grassroots social justice organization. Founded in 1959, the organization did their work here until the late 1960s. They were an education and advocacy organization, working to inform the larger public about what life was really like for local African Americans, and, more importantly, to advocate for them. According to their mission statement, they were a biracial, private, nonprofit organization which was concerned to study, improve, and change discrimination on whatever level it is found in Ithaca. Their membership was a diverse blend of young and old, black and white, women and men. Some were affiliated with Cornell and Ithaca College, but they were members of a local carpenters union, at-home mothers, teachers, and more. Their work was done through their committees, primarily employment, education, and housing. Their employment committee worked with representatives from the New York State Department of Civil Service to improve the job situation for African American workers. They also sponsored career day initiatives at local schools to give students an opportunity to meet representatives from local companies and the local colleges. In addition, they worked with high school and middle school guidance counselors to help them better advise non-college-bound students, hoping to reach as broad a population of students as possible. Their education committee worked closely with the Ithaca City School District Board of Education and Superintendent, proactively by creating panel discussions and workshops to help teachers and staff understand discrimination and social justice issues. They also responded to emergency situations by intervening to address problems such as racial clashes among aggressive students. A significant effort was their sponsorship of a tutorial program, with Cornell student volunteers acting as tutors to underprivileged, mostly Black students in need in the Ithaca schools. Their housing committee worked with the New York State Commission Against Discrimination to bring speakers to educate local realtors, developers, and the general public on New York State's laws against discrimination, especially in housing. New York was a pioneer in legislating equal access for renters and buyers of color in the early 1960s. The council did outreach to realtors to persuade them to rent or sell to African American customers. When that wasn't enough, they publicized incidents of discrimination in newspaper articles, letters to the editor, radio and TV interviews to educate the public about discrimination and to put uncooperative realtors on notice. A major innovation of theirs was the creation of the Housing Search Committee, whose purpose was to make preliminary phone calls and visits to landlords or realtors on behalf of Black renters or home buyers. They wanted to spare them the embarrassment and humiliation of possible refusals based on race. Another important initiative for the council was their advocacy with city and county government for the establishment of a Commission on Human Rights. New York State, a leader in anti-discrimination legislation, had established one in 1945, and it served as a model for local governments statewide. Council members lobbied the mayor and county legislators on the need for such an official clearinghouse for discrimination complaints. One was established here in Tompkins County in 1963. At its height, the Council for Equality had more than 200 members. Two of its greatest luminaries were James L. Gibbs and Beverly J. Martin. James Gibbs was a trailblazer. Born in 1904 in South Carolina, raised in Richmond, Virginia, Gibbs first came to Ithaca in 1935. In 1936, he became the first program director of the Southside Community Center, later becoming its executive director. Southside under Gibbs offered a broad array of services to Ithaca's African American community, including recreational and educational programming for kids and adults. One critical offering was outreach to local employers to advocate for hiring Black workers. As Gibbs later said, "We developed an employment agency. The object was to diversify the job opportunities as well as encourage people to get new and needed skills for job changes." At a time of tremendous workplace discrimination, Gibbs worked closely with local employers such as Ithaca Gun Company, Cayuga Tool Company, as well as Cornell University. A Southside graduate became the first Black secretary at Cornell, later becoming the head secretary for the history department. After his work at Southside, Gibbs paved the way for other African Americans through his work as the first Black employee at the Ithaca Post Office. Later, as a district representative for Mohawk Airlines, he was instrumental in their hiring of the first African American stewardess in the nation. He was a community relations consultant for Tompkins County Trust Company and was chair of the Ithaca Civil Service Commission. He was the first Black member of the Ithaca Rotary Club and later its first Black president. His service to the community continued throughout his retirement years with work on the Tompkins County Office for the Aging, Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services, the Social Service League, the Tompkins County branch of the American Heart Association. He did all of this so successfully because, as his son later said, he always had as a goal or template empowering people in the community to be able to improve their individual lives and build a sense of community. Gibbs died in 1981. A natural heir to the legacy of James Gibbs was Beverly J Martin. Born in Ithaca in 1935, Martin spent her entire life in the same house on 2nd Street in which she grew up. A graduate of Ithaca High School, Martin earned both her undergraduate and graduate degrees at Cornell University. Upon graduation, she began what would be a lifelong career in the Ithaca Public Schools. First at Central Elementary School, teaching 6th grade, later as a reading specialist, and ultimately as their principal, this beloved educator became the district's first director of affirmative action. Martin mentored generations of students and teachers, and was renowned for her care and concern for her charges, offering guidance and support for the more than 30 years that she worked for the district. Her work as the Director of Affirmative Action was trailblazing. One of the first such officers in the nation, Martin was responsible for recruiting staff of color, as well as monitoring the district's compliance with civil rights laws. "No one knows how many people she helped," said one of her student teachers, who later became an assistant professor at SUNY Cortland. From buying coats and mittens for needy children to paying some college tuition for her mentees, she touched the lives of so many for so long. In 1992, Central Elementary was renamed Beverly J Martin Elementary School in her honor. She died in 1993.